From Spain's unjust surveillance of its black citizens to Switzerland's downright distressing cases of police brutality, here are 6 countries that you never want to visit as a black person. Now, Spain just has to be on this list. Here's the thing, when you picture Spain, the first thing that's going to be popping in your head is its amazing culture, beautiful beaches, and dazzling cities, right? But stop right there. Because beneath all that charm is a really grim reality for travelers, especially for people of African descent. You see, despite Spain's history of having many diverse communities, including Black Spaniards and foreigners of color, the country still has an inherent racism issue that it has yet to fully address and resolve. And keep in mind, this isn't just a case of 1 or 2 separate incidents, but a fully pervasive issue that'll definitely be felt to some degree by any person of color who visits the country. And if you're still unsure, consider the experiences of Abraham Jimenez Inoa. He's a Cuban writer who made Spain his new home in 2021 and has documented all the various incidents of racism and discrimination he's had to face in the country. And are you ready for the bomb drop? He's counted over 108 such incidents in just a couple of years. Crazy, right? And this isn't about getting a weird look or two from the natives. Nope. I'm talking about unjust surveillance in stores to unwarranted ID checks on public transport. His accounts really showcase just how problematic Spain really is for Black people. And sadly, it doesn't look like the problem's going to go away anytime soon. That's because of the apparent lack of action from those in power. Sadly, Spain is far from the only country that should be miles away from a Black person's travel list, because Morocco is another place that's unsafe for Black people. The country's diverse landscapes and beautiful culture might feel like it's inviting you into a journey that's sure to be downright enchanting. But behind that magic is a dark shadow, cast by centuries of the trans-Saharan slave trade. Morocco's historical involvement in this trade has left a lasting impact that, unfortunately, still lingers in the country. While the nation might be the dream destination for some, anti-Black racism remains a challenge, making it less than ideal for Black people. In daily life, non-Black Moroccans often deny or ignore the existence of this issue. Yet beneath the surface, racist terms and derogatory labels still exist, greatly reducing the worth and humanity of Black Moroccans. And it gets even worse. Migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, in particular, face targeted mistreatment, feeling like outsiders. Black Moroccans are often asked where they're from, as a way of implying that the only true Moroccans are those who've got a whiter complexion. These veiled attacks can honestly feel incredibly disrespectful and can do much to sour even the best of trips. So you can only imagine what it must be like to be settled there as a Black person. While not everyone shares these harmful sentiments, the fact is that this exclusionary attitude not only denies Black folk their heritage, but also creates a barrier to feeling like valued members of society. With a history of slavery, the nation's diverse population, and issues of racism often absent from school curricula and public discourse, it's hard to see this changing anytime soon. And the same can be said for Brazil. For those who might not know, the country's grappling with a racism problem. That's downright distressing. This may come as a surprise to some. After all, Brazil's image in the world is that of a melting pot of races. But that doesn't make it immune to the very real racial divide the country faces. In fact, this is something that goes all the way back to when they first abolished slavery in 1888. You see, Brazilian authorities created a narrative of racial harmony, portraying Brazil as a unique haven of peaceful coexistence rather than actively integrating Black individuals into society. But you can't just change how people think overnight, especially without putting in the necessary groundwork. Flash forward to the 21st century, and well, the statistics for racial inequality in Brazil speak for themselves. Black and brown Brazilians face much more police violence, limited access to education, and underrepresentation in decision-making circles. And here's the kicker. They make up 64% of the unemployed population and are almost 3 times more likely to fall victim to homicides. Now, I don't think you'll want to visit a place where you're 3 times as likely to be killed. While many Brazilians now do accept that this racism in the country is a very real problem, the fight against it has been quite an uphill battle, especially in recent years with the election of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, let's talk about Mexico. As a Black traveler in Mexico, it's hard to deny the pattern of racism that seems like it's woven into the country's fabric. From billboards and flash images to advertisements on TV. The prevalence of white faces in these campaign acts is downright bizarre. But that's just scratching the surface. Remember the 2018 Indio beer scandal? A campaign for the beer company featured fair-skinned Mexicans wearing shirts that played with a derogatory term that directly insulted indigenous people. While the shirts were later changed, the damage they caused made it clear that racial discrimination is still very alive and well in Mexico. Much of this is because of societal bias, which places white skin on a massive pedestal. And it goes far beyond just advertising. Just in 2022, an upscale Mexico City steakhouse added a new policy where their employees reserve the best tables for customers with lighter skin. Sounds crazy, right? Of course, the steakhouse denied the allegations, but the truth was as clear as day. I'd definitely knock it off my travel list, knowing this is the kind of treatment individuals with a darker skin tone have to face there. Much like in the US, this bias stems from the slave trade and continues to pervade aspects of society all these decades later. Now, here's a country you might not have expected to see on this list. Yep, it's France. Despite celebrating milestones in combating racism, France isn't in the all clear just yet. In fact, while the country might do a decent job at presenting an image of equality to the world behind the smiling facade, there are quite a few issues related to racism still occurring in France. Now, it's subtle, sure, but if you visit the country, you'll notice it manages to find its way into everyday scenarios. Stuff like Black individuals being relegated to roles such as back office staff or cleaning personnel. It's a really sad thing to see, knowing that Black and brown people play such a huge role in the vibrancy of the city, but remain marginalized and invisible. And it feels all the more insulting with the country so often wanting to declare how progressive and forward-thinking it is. Take this for example. In 2022, France celebrated the 50th anniversary of the enactment of the law of July 1st, 1972, which penalizes racist insults and defamation, incitement to discrimination, hatred, or racial violence. But even 5 decades later, true racial equality is still something that Black French citizens long to see. As a tourist, you might not get the chance to see the full force of this during your visit there. But if the choice is available, there are plenty of other countries that are much more welcoming to Black people. That said, Switzerland is not one of them. With its amazing weather and breathtaking Alps scenery, Switzerland might feel like the perfect tourist destination. But like all other countries on this list, it's not nearly as welcoming towards people of African descent as you'd think. In fact, it's probably one of the worst tourist hubs that you can go to as a Black person. You see, despite Switzerland never being a colonial power, its historical connection to the transatlantic triangular trade, benefiting from banks, traders, and municipalities, has left a dark stain. A recent report presented to the UN Human Rights Council has brought this unsettling problem to light. It shows just how many incidents of discrimination still persist in the country, including some disturbing cases of police brutality. And this really is an issue that's present in multiple aspects of society. You'll find kids at playgrounds playing games like Who's Afraid of the Black Man? While it might sound like fun and games, an attitude like this being instilled in kids paints a really problematic picture of what the future of the country might look like. Even beyond that, racial profiling and police scrutiny have been glaringly more aggressive towards the country's Black residents. And in general, you're better off staying clear of the country. So from Switzerland with its distressing cases of police brutality to Spain and its unjust surveillance of its Black citizens, those were 6 countries that you never want to visit as a Black person.